Finding insights from raw data is quite an interesting task. With the help of data mining techniques, we can find patterns or outliers in the existing raw data. Not only this, we can also create beautiful graphs to better visualize the data. In this video, we shall be using data mining techniques to find insights from the IPL data. Now, before we go ahead with the demo, I'd request you guys to please like the video and subscribe to our channel. Also, if you have any suggestions or queries, please do put them up in the comment section. So let's get started. So folks, we have opened up our studio over here and we'll be performing the different data mining operations with the help of R language on top of the IPL dataset. So what I want to do is, my first step would be to load the IPL dataset, and that I can find from this option. So here you will see this import dataset option. Let me just go ahead and click on this. And over here you will see from text base. Again, I'll go ahead and select this. And over here I have a file called as ipl.csv. Let me select this and click on open. And as you see, these are all of the columns and records which are present over here. And by default, the name over here is IPL. And here what I want to do is heading, I'll select yes. So over here you see the difference. So here by default we have the headings as V1, V2, V3. But what I'd want is, I'd want all of the values in the first row to become the headings, or basically the column names. So here what I'll do is, I'll select heading is yes, and all of the values which are present in the first row become the column names. And as you see, all of these values have been made bold. And all of these are obviously comma separated values because this is a .csv file. Let me just go ahead and click on import. So instead of using import dataset, let's say if you'd want to write a command for that in R language, the command would be read.csv. So if you'd want to load a CSV file into RStudio or with the help of R language, you would have to use read.csv, and inside that you would have to give the entire path of the file. So now that I have loaded this dataset, I am having a glance at this dataset with the help of this view command. So when I use view of IPL, this is what I get. Let me just drag this down so that you guys can see this dataset properly. So these are all of the columns which are present in this particular dataset. So this ID, let's just leave it out for now. Going ahead, we have the city column, which basically means in which particular city this match was played in. After that, we have the exact date. So we have a match which was played on 18th of April 2008. And in this particular match, the player of the match, or basically the man of the match, was Brendan McCullum. And this match was played at M. Chinnaswamy Stadium. And was this a neutral venue? So you have zeros and 1 for this. So 0 means that this was not a neutral venue, and 1 means that this was a neutral venue. We have team 1 and team 2, which basically tell you the teams which were participating in this IPL match. So obviously this match was between Royal Challengers Bangalore and Kolkata Knight Riders. And in this match, it would seem that Royal Challengers Bangalore had won the toss and decided to field. And this match was won by Kolkata Knight Riders. So if you guys remember clearly, this was the first ever match in IPL's history. And in this match, Brendan McCullum, I believe, had scored around 150 odd runs, and that is why he was the player of the match. And now, here we have the result. So when you have runs, this would basically mean that the team batting first has won the match. And when you have wickets over here, this would mean that the team batting second has won the match. So here, obviously, team batting first was Kolkata Knight Riders, and they won by a margin of 140 runs, courtesy, obviously, Brendan McCullum. Then going ahead, we have this eliminator column, which would tell you if this match was an eliminator or not. After that, we have Empire 1 and Empire 2, where we just have the names of the first empire and the second empire. So this is all about this IPL dataset. Now let's go ahead and perform some basic data mining operations so that we can understand more about the underlying data. So what I'd want to do is, let's say from this city column, I'd want to see the number of times the match was played in each city. So for that particular purpose, I have a method called as table, and inside table, what I'll do is I will pass in the city column. So for that, I need to write IPL dollar and then I'll have city. Now when I hit enter, this is what I get. So here you would see that there were 29 matches played in Abu Dhabi. There were 12 matches played in Ahmedabad, 65 matches played in Bangalore, 15 matches played in Bengaluru. So here Bengaluru and Bangalore is basically the same city. Then you have 7 matches played in Cape Town and so on. Now let's say if I'd actually want to arrange this in descending order, so that I'd want to see in which particular city the most number of matches were played. So that is something which I can definitely do. So here I will write down the method sort. Now before that, let me actually go ahead and clear my screen. Now I'll write down sort, and inside this again I will use the table method. Inside the table method, I would just need to pass in the city column. So I'll have IPL dollar city. Now after this, I would have to sort this in descending order. So I will set decreasing is equal to T, which means decreasing is equal to true. Now let me run this and let's go ahead and look at the result. So if you see, when you see 816 entries, which would mean that this is a data set which would give information about 816 matches. So out of these 816 matches, 101 matches were played in Mumbai. 77 matches were played in Kolkata, 74 matches were played in Delhi, 65 matches in Bangalore and 64 matches in Hyderabad. So now let's say if we combine Bengaluru with Bangalore, so that's 65 plus 15, so that would be 65, 75, 80. So probably Bengaluru would be in second position after Mumbai. Now I'd want to basically check the number of rows and columns in this particular data frame. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I want to find out the exact number of rows in any data frame, I can just go ahead and type in n row. And inside n row, I will pass in the name of the data frame. So here the name of the data frame is IPL, and that is exactly what I'm passing in over here. Now when I run this, you would see the result 816, which would mean that there are 816 records. And for this particular data set, this value 816 means that we have information about 816 matches that were played from actually 2008 going on till 2020. And now similarly, if I want to find the number of columns, I can just use ncol, and inside this I will pass in IPL again. Let me run this and you would see that there are 17 columns. Now on the other hand, let's say if you'd want to find this out directly, so here you have this global environment. So here you can directly see that there are 816 observations of 17 variables, where again 816 is representing the number of records and 17 is representing the number of columns. Now that this is clear, what I'd want to do is I'd want to check the basic structure of this data set. So to check the basic structure, I have this str command, which simply stands for structure. Inside this, again, I will pass in IPL. Let me go ahead and run this. Now here, as you see, on the left hand side, you will basically have the name of the particular column actually over here. So ID is the name of the column. Then you have the type of the column. So ID is integer. City is character. Date again is character. Player of the match is character, and so on. Now this just seems a bit chaotic. So that is why normally we use the view method. And with the help of view method, we get this really pretty looking table. From there, information can be easily found out. And now, let's say from this entire data frame, let's say if I would want to have a glance at the first 5 records, only the first 5 records. So what I'd want to do is, I have a method called as head. Inside head, I will pass in IPL, and after this, I will write the value 5. So by default, the head method will give you 6 records. So let's say I'll have head of IPL, and I'll store this in a new variable and I will call this as IPL top 5 records. Now let me have a glance at this new data frame. So I'll have view of IPL top 5 records, and if you look at this, you will see that I actually have the top 6 records or the top 5 records. So by default, the head method gives you the top 6 records. So let's say if I want only the top 5 records now, what I'd want to do is here, I'll just put in comma and then I'll give in the value 5. Now let me run this. So as you see, in this data frame, suddenly from the 6 records, we have only 5 records in this data frame. Now the head method will give you the top records from the data frame, or basically the first 5 records or the first 6 records from your data frame. Similarly, if you'd want the last 6 records from your data frame, there's a method analogous to the head method, and that method is tail. So let's go ahead and use the tail method over here. I'll use tail, and inside this again, I will pass in IPL. Now, since I want the last 5 records, I'll pass in 5 over here, and let me go ahead and store this in IPL bottom 5 records. Now again, let me have a glance at this view of IPL bottom 5 records, and as you see here, if you look at the index values, they start from 812 and go till 816, which would basically indicate that these are the last 5 records from this particular data frame. So this sort of simple data analysis can be done from our data set. Now what I'd want to do is, let's say I have this player of match column over here. So I'd want to find out who has won the most number of player of match or most number of man of the match awards. So again, what I'd have to do is I can just go ahead and use the table method. Inside the table method, I will pass in IPL dollar. So IPL is the name of the data frame. With the help of the dollar symbol, I can select a particular column from this data frame. So I'll have IPL dollar player of match, and when I run this, this is the result which I get over here. So it would seem that Chandila has won man of the match once. Anil Kumble has won man of the match 3 times. Amit Mishra has won man of the match award 11 times. Then we have AB de Villiers, who has won man of the match 23 times. Then we have Adam Gilchrist, who has won man of the match award 7 times. Now again, what I'd want to do is I want to look at only the top players, and if I want to look at the top players, I can just arrange this in descending order. So before this, I will just add the sort method again. Let me copy this entire thing, paste it inside the sort method and delete this. After this, again, I will write decreasing is equal to true. Now, if I run this and if I scroll this to the top, you will see that I have AB de Villiers in the first position because he has won the most number of man of the match awards. So AB de Villiers has won 23 man of the match awards. Closely following behind is his ex-RCB teammate Chris Gayle with 22 man of the match awards. Then we have the hitman Rohit Sharma with 18 man of the match awards. After that, we have the flamboyant Australian player David Warner with 17 man of the match awards. So this is, the different type of information that again we can extract or wrangle from the data which we already have. Now going ahead, what I want to do is I want to similarly find out which umpire has been the first umpire for most number of matches. So here again, I'll just use table. I'll have IPL dollar umpire 1, and I can just go ahead and use the sort method for this. I'll copy this entire thing and go ahead and paste this inside the sort method. After this, I'll just set decreasing is equal to true. Now let me scroll this up, and here you can see that Dharmasena has been the first umpire for most number of matches. So he has been the first umpire for 78 matches. Then you have A.K. Chowdhury, who has been the first umpire in 56 matches. After that, you have close behind Asad Rauf, who has been the first umpire in 51 matches. Then you have Erasmus, then you have Aleem Dar. Now, what I want to do is, I want to analyze how a team has been performing in a particular city. So let's say if I take the city of Bangalore, what I basically want to do is from this entire data frame, I'd want to extract only those records where the city is equal to Bangalore. And for this purpose, I would require a library called as dplyr, with the help of which I can perform data wrangling or data manipulation operations. So let me just go ahead and load up the library. So I'll write down library dplyr, and now that I have loaded this, I can just go ahead and use a function which is present inside that. Now also, before you actually directly load the dplyr method, you'd have to install it. So here you see this packages tab. Here you will have the install option. So whatever new package you'd want to install, you can just write in the name of it. So let's say if you'd want to install dplyr, write in dplyr. Similarly, if you'd want to install ggplot2, write in ggplot2. And when you click on install, the package would be automatically installed. So since I've already installed dplyr into RStudio, I do not need to install it again. So I'll just go ahead and load it. Library of dplyr, and now that I have loaded this library, I would have to extract only those records from this data frame where the city value is equal to Bangalore. So for this, I'll start off by writing the name of the data frame, which is IPL. Then I have something called as a pipe operator. So normally, let's say whenever you are constructing something, you would have these connection pipes, isn't it, with the help of which you connect different things together. So you can consider this pipe operator to be the same sort of thing. So with the help of this pipe operator, so here pipe operator is basically you have percent symbol, then you have the greater than sign, and then you have the percent symbol again. So this entire thing is your pipe operator, and this helps you to connect different objects together. So when I say different objects, you can basically be connecting one function with another function, or one function with another data frame or a list or a vector and so on. So here I have written IPL, then I've used the pipe operator, and I am using the filter method. And this filter method is part of the dplyr package. So if you haven't loaded your dplyr library, you will not be able to work with this filter package. So I've written IPL filter, and I'd want to filter out all of those records where the city value is equal to Bangalore. Now let me go ahead and store this in a new object, and I'll call that object as Bangalore. Now I'll just use the view method, view of Bangalore, and if you look at the city column over here, you will see that all of the values in this are equal to Bangalore. Now, I don't want to see who has won the most number of player of matches awards in Bangalore city. So I can just go ahead and use the table method over here, and I'll write down. So the name of the data frame is Bangalore. So I'll have Bangalore $player of match. And here, if I look at all of these values, it seems that it's pretty clear. We have our universe boss, Chris Gayle, with the most number of man of the match awards. So Chris Gayle is leading with 9 man of the match awards in Bangalore. Then you have Virat Kohli, who has got 6 man of the match awards in Bangalore. So after that, it's again, you have AB de Villiers, who has again won 6 man of the match awards. So this is quite interesting, isn't it? Similarly, let's say if I do want to extract all of those records where the city is equal to Chennai. So what I'll do is I'll write down IPL, and I'll use the pipe operator. I'll give in the filter symbol, and I'll write down city is equal to Chennai, and I'll just go ahead and store this in a new object, and I'll call that new object to be Chennai. So view of Chennai, and let's see what do we get. So here we have 57 entries, which would mean that we have 57 matches that were played in Chennai. Again, I don't want to see who has won the most number of man of the match awards in Chennai. So let me actually start off by using the sort method itself. Inside this, I'll use the table method. The name of the data frame this time is Chennai, and I would want to select the player of the match column. Now after this, since I'm using the sort method, I am actually going to sort this. I would actually have to keep it over here. Let me write this down properly. Decreasing is equal to true. And here you have Michael Hussey, who has won 5 Man of the Match awards, and you also have MS Dhoni, who has won 5 Man of the Match awards in Chennai. Then close behind you have Murli Vijay and Raina with 4 Man of the Match awards each. Then you have McCallum and du Plessis with 2 Man of the Match awards. So again, interesting information from this data frame. Now, let's say if I want to extract all of those records where the city is either Chennai, Bangalore, Delhi or Mumbai. So this is also something which can be done over here. So I'll write down IPL, I'll use the pipe operator, then I'll use the filter method. Inside this, I will give multiple conditions, and this is how it can be done. So first condition is city is equal to Bangalore. After that, I'll use the OR operator. So city can either be Bangalore or city can be equal to Delhi, or let me also give in city can be equal to Mumbai, and let me give in the OR operator again, and this time let's say I'll give the city to be equal to, let's select Kolkata. Let me write down Kolkata over here, and what I'll do is I'll store this in a new object. I'll call it as IPL for cities. Let me have a glance at this view of IPL for cities. And here we've got Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai and Kolkata. And now out of this, what I do want to do is, out of these 4 cities, I do want to see in which city were the most number of matches played. So if I want to visualize something, I have a library called as ggplot2. So again, I'd have to load the library. So I'll have library ggplot2. So now that I have loaded this, let me go ahead and make a bar plot for the same. So I'll write down ggplot of data is basically this IPL 4 cities data frame which I've just created. After that, I'll write down aesthetic, on what I'll do is I'm basically mapping a column onto the x-axis. So here I'll write down x is equal to city, because I just want to understand the distribution of the city column. So data is equal to IPL 4 cities, x is equal to city. After this, I'll just go ahead and use geom bar. And inside geom bar, what I'd want is I'll give stat is equal to count, because I would want the frequency of these categorical values. Now let me go ahead and run this. So this is how this bar plot comes out. So out of Bangalore, Delhi, Kolkata and Mumbai, it would seem that the most number of matches were played in Mumbai. Let me also zoom this over here for you guys. So out of these 4 cities, the least number of matches, it seems, were played in Bangalore, and the maximum number of matches were played in Mumbai. Now, the problem with this plot is this seems a bit bland. So let me go ahead and add some color onto this. So here, let's say I'll add an attribute called as fill, and let me give in a color. So I'll give in this color called as pale green 4, and as you see, I've been able to successfully add color to this plot. So this is a fill color. Now similarly, we have a boundary color. That is also something which I can go ahead and add. So I'll have an attribute called as call, and here let me pass in green and run this. And now if you look at this closely, you would see that I have also added a boundary color. So this fill color is pale green 4, and the boundary color which you see, that is light green or parrot green. Now what I want to do is I want to give a separate color for each of these different cities. So that also something which we can do. So let me just tweak this method properly for that. So again, I'll have ggplot data. Inside this, I will have IPL for cities. Let me select this properly. Aesthetic. And here onto the x-axis, I will map city. And now I will use this fill as an aesthetic and not really as an attribute, which would mean that I am mapping the city column onto fill aesthetic. So when I map the city column onto the fill aesthetic, so each of these bars which you see will have a different fill color. After this, I would need to use the geom bar method, and here rest would be the same. I'll have stat is equal to count. Now let me run this, and as you guys see over here, I have 4 bars and all of these 4 bars have different colors. So there's, let's call this pink color. I am pretty bad with colors, so let's just call this pink. So this pink colored bar would represent Bangalore. Then we have this green color which would represent Delhi. Then we have this blue color which would represent Kolkata. Let's call this purple, I guess, if I'm not wrong. This bar would represent the matches which were played in Mumbai. So seems like we've done enough data mining with the help of R language. Now let's open up Jupyter Notebook and also perform some data mining operations with the help of Python. So folks, I've opened up Jupyter Notebook over here. Again, my first step would be to load the required libraries and also to load the file. Now, since this is a CSV file, to work with CSV files in Python, I would need a library called as pandas. And the same library would also help me to perform some basic data manipulation, data wrangling operations. So here, let me just go ahead and import the pandas library. Now, after I import pandas, what I'd want to do is I'll go ahead and I'll actually import this as PD. So import pandas as PD. Now I'd want to load a CSV file. So here I shall write down pd.read_CSV, and inside this I need to give in the name of the file, which is ipl.csv. And let me just go ahead and store this in a new object, and I'll call that new object as IPL. So now that I have loaded this object, let me have a glance at the first few records of this IPL data frame. So as we had the head method in R language, similarly we also have the head method in Python language. So here IPL.head. Now when I run this, I have the first 5 records of this entire data frame. So here you would have to understand the difference between the head method in Python and the head method in R language. So when we use the head method in R language, by default it gave us the first 6 records. But when we are working with the head method in Python language, this will give us by default first 5 records. So now here what I'd want to do is, let's say instead of 5 records, if I'd want 10 records, let me just put in 10. And here as you see, I have the first 10 records from this data frame. So this is the head method. Now let's say if I'd want to find out the number of rows and columns which are present over here. So for that purpose, let me write in ipl.shape and let me run this. Let me actually remove these braces from over here. Now we get the result 816, 17, which means that there are 816 records and 17 columns. And obviously these 816 records represent the number of matches played in this data frame. Now, from this entire data frame, what I'd want to do is, again, let's say I'd want to find out the frequency of this city column, which would mean that I'd want to see, or I'd want to find out the number of matches played across different cities. So let's see how can we do that using the Python language. So here, let me just go ahead and write down, I'd have to write down the name of the data frame first. So the name of the data frame is obviously IPL. Then I'll give in the parenthesis, and inside parenthesis, let me give in single quotes, and inside single quotes, let me give in the name of the column. So the name of the column is city. Now, after this, I have a method called as value counts. So I'll write down dot value counts, and when I run this, this is the result which I get. So, and also if you look at the result properly, you would see that the result is already sorted in descending order. And we see that there were 101 matches played in Mumbai, 77 matches played in Kolkata, 74 matches in Delhi, 65 matches in Bangalore, and 64 matches in Hyderabad. Now, what I'd want to do is, let's say, I'll go a bit ahead, and similarly, I'd want to find out the frequency for player of the match column. So here, let me write down IPL, and inside this, let me use the name of the column, which would be player of the match. Again, I will use the value counts method. Let me write this down properly. And when I execute this, you will see that most number of man of the match awards are won by AB de Villiers. Now, also when I say most number of man of the match awards, you'd have to understand that this date, it starts from 2008 and goes till 2020. So, you have AB de Villiers with 23 Man of the Match awards, then Chris Gayle with 22, Rohit Sharma with 18, Dhoni with 17, and Warner with 17. And now, going ahead, I would want to make a bar plot for, let's say, the top 5 players with most number of Man of the Match awards. So for this purpose, I would need a visualization library. So let me just go ahead and import the libraries. So I'll write down from matplotlib import pyplot as plt. So matplotlib is a visualization library, and from this we have a submodule called as pyplot, and we are giving that pyplot an alias of plt. Now with the help of this pyplot, we can go ahead and create a bar plot. Now I'll write down plt.bar. And inside this, actually before I go ahead and make this bar plot, let me show you the keys and values from this particular thing. So here we have IPL player of the match dot value counts, and here we have the names of the players as well as the number of times they won the man of the match awards. So let's say from this thing, if I'd want only the names of the players, I can just put in the keys method. Now when I run this, you will see that IPL player of match dot value counts dot keys gives me only the names of the players over here. Now let's say instead of keys, if I have values over here, I'll actually remove values. I'll not require it. If I have, let's say, I'll remove the braces over there. So here 23, 22, 18, 17, these are the values. Now when I remove this and run this, I have the names and values as well. So when we are creating a bar plot, and obviously a bar plot is to understand the distribution of a categorical column. So what we do when we are building a bar plot is, we will map these categorical values or the names of the players onto the x-axis, and the values over here, which would mean the number of times they won the man of the match award, onto the y-axis. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll have plt.bar, and the value which I given as the first parameter would go onto the x-axis, and the value which I given onto the second parameter will go onto the y-axis. So first parameter, since it has to go onto the x-axis, I need to give in the names of the players. So where will I get the names of the players from? Let me copy this. Let me paste it over here. After that, I need to use the keys method, and I'd want to make this bar plot for only the top 5 players. So inside parenthesis, I'll have 0 to 5. Similarly, let me copy paste this again over here. Now what I'd want is, I would want to have a glance at only the first 5 values. Again, I'll give in parenthesis over here. I'll write down 0:5. Now I'll go ahead and execute this, and as you see, most number of man of the match awards, AB de Villiers, Chris Gayle, Rohit Sharma, MS Dhoni, and David Warner. Now again, if I want to give different colors to all of these bars, that is also something which can be done. So here, let me select this, and what I shall do is, I have this parameter called as color. And here let me give in 5 different colors. So we have AB de Villiers, let's give him a red color because he plays for RCB. Then we have Chris Gayle, let's give him pink color because now he plays for Punjab. Then we have Rohit Sharma, let's give him blue color because he plays for Mumbai. Then we have Dhoni, who plays for Chennai, and then we have Warner, who plays for Hyderabad. So let me give him the orange color over here. Now, if I run this, you will see that I have different colors for all of these different bars. So this red colored bar indicates that the player is AB de Villiers, pink colored bar indicates that the player is Chris Gayle, and so on. So folks, we've done basic data mining with the help of R language as well as Python language on top of the IPL dataset. So if you have found this session informative, please do like the video and also do subscribe to our channel. So on that note, I'll sign off. Thank you.